Hi, welcome back to Perspectives. I'm Ellie Ballard. In this lecture, I'll be giving you an overview of the American criminal justice system. Before we dive into the criminal justice system itself, we need to define two essential terms. First, crime. What is crime? Interestingly, there's a great debate surrounding how crime should be defined and, perhaps more importantly, who should get to define it. But for our purposes, let's keep it simple. Crime is any conduct that violates criminal law for which there is no legally accepted justification or excuse. The second essential term we need to define is law. Again, there's lots of debate surrounding how law is defined and who gets to define it. But again, let's keep it simple. Law refers to codified rules proscribing or prohibiting behavior or conduct. Now, let's jump into our criminal justice system. The American criminal justice system mimics our system of government, federalism. That is, a system of government in which power is divided between a national government and a state government. Interestingly, the U.S. Constitution does not specifically designate any federal criminal justice agencies. However, it does prohibit a national police force with broad powers. So, what about the FBI, you ask? Well, the FBI is an investigative force with limited police powers. Most criminal justice activities occur at the local level, including law construction, law enforcement, court, and correctional activity. The federal government, of course, is more equipped to deal with crimes that cross state lines, but the vast majority of crime-fighting activity occurs at the state and local levels. Our criminal justice system is comprised of three components. These include police, courts, and corrections. Now, the police are the front line of the criminal justice system, and they handle almost exclusively all enforcement activities. The courts are the adjudication arm of the criminal justice system. It is the job of the courts to bring about the legal resolve. We're all familiar with the major players of this component: prosecutors, defense attorneys, and judges. The corrections component is responsible for carrying out the sanctions applied by the courts, and it includes our jails, prisons, community corrections such as probation and parole, fines, all of that type of stuff. Let's talk about the goals of the criminal justice system. The American criminal justice system has three primary goals. First, doing justice. For our purposes, let's define justice as the ideal of moral equity or the principle of fairness. Simply put, offenders will be held accountable for their crimes. The rights of offenders, victims, and witnesses will be protected. And like offenses will be treated alike, well, with officials exercising discretion to account for relative differences among offenses and offenders. The second goal is controlling crime. Crime control involves arresting, prosecuting, convicting, and punishing those who violate the law within the framework of the law. And lastly, preventing crime. This is all about deterrence. Okay, let's talk about the characteristics of the criminal justice system. There are four major characteristics. The first is discretion. Criminal justice agents and officials have freedom to act according to their own judgment and conscience. For example, you're driving down the road and you come to a four-way stop. You can clearly see there are no other cars at the intersection, so you slow down, but you don't stop all the way. A police officer sees this. It is the police officer's discretion whether to pull you over or not. Let's say the officer does pull you over. It's completely their discretion to let you go with a warning or to issue you a citation. Now, discretion isn't just a characteristic of the police. On the contrary, prosecutors, judges, correctional officers, probation, parole officers, all criminal justice actors have a great deal of discretion. And we're going to talk a great deal about this characteristic of the CJ system throughout the semester. The second characteristic is resource dependence. All criminal justice agencies are dependent on other agencies for funding, and this can be very political. Contrary to popular belief, the police don't actually fund their agencies by writing you tickets. When they do write you a ticket, the money you pay as a fine goes into the municipality's pot. It could be a city, county, state. The police, courts, and corrections all are given a budget. They're allocated resources by a completely different entity, most always a politically elected entity. For example, Atlanta City Council creates the budget, allocates the resources for all city agencies. This includes the police. The Fulton County Commission does the same for the county, and this includes the courts and the jails. The next characteristic is sequential task. Events happen in a specific order. Police must arrest someone before a prosecutor charges them. The prosecutor must charge someone before a judge or jury can sentence them. A person must be sentenced by the court before corrections can carry out that sentence. Now, the last characteristic is always a fun one. It's filtering. The criminal justice system does an enormous amount of filtering. Take a look at the graphic on this slide. This is the CJ funnel. Let's follow it through. 1,000 serious crimes are committed. 500 of the crimes go unreported. 500 are reported to police. 400 of those remain unsolved. 100 people are arrested. 35 are juveniles, and so they go to juvenile court. 30 of them are put on probation. 5 are retained in the system. Now, out of that 100 people, we've got 35 gone. We have 65 adults that are considered for prosecution. 25 of these cases are dropped. 40 cases are accepted for prosecution. Now, 10, they skip town. They are living their best lives on a tropical island, drinking margaritas and Mai Tais. 30 cases actually go to trial. Now, 27 end up pleading guilty, typically in a plea bargain situation. 2 are found guilty and 1 is acquitted. That means they're found not guilty. So 29 people are sentenced and 9 people are placed on probation. So 20 adults end up being incarcerated. So out of 1,000 serious crimes, only 25 individuals are retained in the system, 5 juveniles and 20 adults. It's a great deal of filtering. Lastly, I want to talk to you about 2 distinct philosophies or models of the criminal justice system put forth by a guy named Herbert Packard. He was a law professor and criminologist at Stanford in the 60s and 70s. First, we have the crime control model. This model assumes that there is nothing more important than public safety, and every effort must be made to repress crime. This model treats the criminal justice system like an assembly line. There's an emphasis on efficiency, speed, and finality. The goal is to apprehend, try, convict, and dispose of the highest proportion of offenders. Okay, great. The city streets are safer, and we can all live happy lives. Well, not so fast. When you go really fast at any task, what happens? Yeah, you make mistakes. So the downside of the crime control model is that innocent people may get swept up in the process. Well, this is a price that public order advocates can live with. They might believe that under certain circumstances, the interest of society should take precedence over individual rights. Well, let's see if Packard's second model can do better. The second model is the due process model. This model suggests or assumes that freedom and liberty are the most important things. So important that we must seek to protect personal freedoms within the process of the criminal justice system. Now, if the crime control model is an assembly line, we can liken the due process model to an obstacle course. The due process model would emphasize the rights of defendants and formal decision-making procedures. Cross every I, or dot every I, cross every T. Well, perfect. If we're ever arrested for a crime we didn't commit, we can trust the process to vindicate us. Well, yes, but if we lean so far into individual rights, then we see guilty people may also go free. Then they're free to roam the streets and victimize other people. Well, in reality, our current criminal justice system is really a kind of bridge or mixture between the two ideologies. You can really think of the system as a pendulum that swings back and forth between both of the models. Okay, thanks for joining me. As always, if you have any questions or need more information, please feel free to reach out to me.